Some of the challenges that I initially have to deal with when patients come in is just acceptance of where they are. And I think, many patients will feel quite guilty about having got to this point in having finally have to succumb to this decision about doing something more drastic like gastric sleeve surgery or gastric bypass surgery. So in other words, they've tried everything and they've probably tried it multiple times. And I think for them there's this great sense of disappointment. There's excitement in terms of what potentially lies ahead, but there's a great deal of disappointment in terms of, why has it come to this? Why have I let myself down so many times over so many years? And I just had somebody recently actually who just really broke down quite dramatically over that realization that, that it's been a long-standing problem, 10, sometimes 15, 20 years, and they've been given every opportunity to deal with it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now they've come to this realization where I really have to do something about it. So there can be a sense of guilt in that respect. And I think a lot of that guilt is also born out of the stigma that is associated with being overweight, and the stigma that is potentially still out there in regards to going through something like surgery to help them lose weight. Because I feel they feel themselves that they're taking the easy way out. And so sometimes you have to work with them and remind them that this is not the easy way out. This, particularly with some of the more invasive procedures like gastric bypass and gastric sleeve surgery. Most of them are permanent, in some cases irreversible. And so it's very important to help them accept that this requires a big commitment. It's not an easy way out. You have to adjust the way you live permanently, and you have to be very dedicated, committed to the cause and the process. And for that reason as well, they're generally quiet about, they're or closed, if you would, with regard to the decision. So they don't share it with a lot of people. They don't share it with many people outside of close family or a partner, because they're still afraid of that stigma. They're still afraid of the negative comments that may come from others. So we're helping them work through that is also in itself a challenge. And there's two ways you can go about it. You can either keep really quiet about it, keep closed, and focus on your goals yourself. If you're a very committed, disciplined person, it can work for you in that sense. But if you're somebody who kind of needs a lot more support, then you may find that, even though you don't think so, being more open with people about the decision to have surgery actually helps you, because it helps you almost use those around you to hold you accountable for some of your actions once you've had the surgery. So basically sharing your goals and sharing your decision to have surgery and sharing your long-term vision, your goals, whether they are purely about weight loss or purely about a lifestyle change or both, can be quite therapeutic and can be motivating in itself, because what it does is it gives you a sense of obligation to follow through with all the appropriate advice, dietary, medical, behavioural advice, and to live a lifestyle that is conducive to producing results that others can witness and see, so that you don't have people potentially pointing a finger at you and saying, well, you've taken the easy way out. Well, you haven't. You've put the hard work in as well, and you're kind of in some way using these people around you to subconsciously hold you accountable for leading a life that is appropriate and conducive to better long-term results through surgery. A common issue is, they do feel that, having to see a psychologist is an immediate assessment that because they're overweight, that they have a psychological problem, and that needs to be dealt with. And really, it's so far from the truth. And so probably the best comparison I can make in this sense is You know, you can have, if you look at a sports person, for example, a sports person will go and have a psychologist as part of their team framework, you know, just like they have a physiotherapist that they see regularly, or strength and conditioning coach, a dietitian or nutritionist, and they have a sports psychologist that they see as well. And that's not necessarily always to deal with something like performance anxiety. So we know that sometimes sports people, particularly those who don't have a lot of experience, can have some performance anxiety, and that can sap a lot of energy from their game. And but yeah, so making sure that you've got people around, the right people around you. So looking at the psychologist in this sort of framework is really about also surrounding yourself with just that one extra person who is available to you if and when you need them. And as I said before, you know, we do like to bring you in quite regularly to have chats, to open up, you know, have that opportunity for dialogue. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem and we need to deal with it. It's really about, you know, building a relationship more than anything, so that if things come up, there is an opportunity for you to deal with that problem, which is a little bit different, because what most people do is when they need a psychologist, is they kind of make the self-assessment. I need to talk to somebody, or perhaps they're getting recommendations from family members that, look, you really need to go and talk to somebody, and they'll go and see their GP and they'll get a care plan and they'll go and see a psychologist. Now it's certainly available to you as well, and we encourage those sort of things, but at the same time, for us in this particular environment, it's about actually bringing you and opening up that relationship right away, and having that therapeutic dialogue right away, so that you feel comfortable and that you feel like you've got, you know, not only a dietitian and a nurse and a surgeon and a range of people around you supporting you, but you've got this one extra person, the psychologist, who can help you through ongoing challenges. Because remember that, you know, a weight loss journey could be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. And, you know, a lot can happen in that time, and we want you to feel confident that you can go and access that support when you need it. So it's really less about assessing your psychological status, you know, or your psychological framework, and more about you know, building a relationship, and at the same time learning as much as we can about you, your character traits, behavioral traits, your eating patterns, lifestyle habits, and all those things, and then trying to find a way to work within that system to help you get the best possible results. Look, men, it is quite common even in this industry, you know, where you know, all patients are kind of going through the same process. You know, they're all seeing the psychologist, the dietitian, and the nurse, and it is very evident in the consultation process that the consultations with men generally seem to be a little bit shorter. There's a little bit less to and fro dialogue, and I think there's a little bit more resistance, if you would, from men in that respect. And again, this, you know, just comes down to the well-known view that men are a little bit more guarded in opening up, and they're a little bit more reserved in, you know, acknowledging that there is an underlying problem, if there is one. And so I think the important thing, again, goes back to what I've stressed with seeing all patients, is just having that opportunity to open up dialogue and to have a relationship with our patients is what's really important. So if we bring men in and we give them that opportunity, they may not open up, as we well know, but at least the opportunity is there for them. And so I think what puts men off is sometimes the process of having to get to that point where they get that help. You know, they may feel like, you know, there's obviously a lot of self-talk, and they may feel like, you know, at some point, you know, when it gets really bad, I'll do something about it. And that may be too late, or it may just, you know, exacerbate the problem. And so, because it also comes with having to take themselves out of what has typically become their comfort zone, to go and ask the GP for help, to get a care plan, to go and find somebody who can then deal with them, with that problem, and help them with that problem. And so sometimes the process puts them off because it's long, and it requires, you know, a bit of intuition, and it requires a little bit of, you know, self-talk in opposite extremes. So kind of accepting that, you know, I have a challenge and I need to deal with it. So for us, when it comes to men's health, you know, I particularly enjoy talking to men and giving them that opportunity. And you know, I encourage them to come in and go through the process like we do with every single patient, because it is important. And I think for me as well, being a male, and coming from a sports background as well, you know, I've been in those environments where, you know, there is that sort of peer perception about, you know, what do we talk about when it comes to men's health. And so I think giving them that opportunity to come in and have a chat and open up a potential therapeutic relationship, I think also gives men a bit more confidence to say, well, you know, I don't have to go the long way around. I don't have to, it's not a long-winded process, you know. I can simply pick up the phone and say, look, can I see Warren? I've seen him before. We have had a chat for an hour. We've got all this information. We've collected it. And we can go from there. And I think just making it a little bit easier for men, I think, is the key. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is having that open therapeutic relationship with them before there's a problem, so that they do feel like they can come in and that they don't have to take this long road to come in. So social media has certainly brought about a whole new set of challenges when it comes to things like body image, and because unfortunately we're now in a position where we're measuring our own success or our own body image, you know, according to what we see on social media. And so there is a lot of depression associated with spending too much time on social media, you know, whether it be for not getting the appropriate amount of feedback or likes, or whether it be simply people comparing their lives to those who are having all the fun and enjoyment on social media. But I think, you know, body image is something that is certainly, or poor negative body image is something that's certainly exacerbated over time, you know, and social media hasn't helped in that sense. But I think probably one of the most important things in terms of helping people deal with this is to really look at how they can actually, so if you look at this, people striving for this perfect image, or perfection, if you would, you know, I try and encourage them to focus on perfection rather in the process rather than the end result. So talking about, you know, changes they can make with regards to their day-to-day lifestyle. So improvements in their behavior, perhaps getting control over certain elements of their behavior. Those are what we talk about as process goals. So if you look at somebody like a sports person, rather than focusing on winning an event or a tournament, or somebody with weight loss, for example, rather than, you know, judging their success by what the scale says, is to judge or attribute their success to the behavioral changes that they're able to make. So whether they're able to walk faster, run faster, have better control over their eating patterns through some sort of program to help them control eating patterns. So looking at the process rather than the end result is a far more effective way of absolving issues around body image.